By luck of the draw, the first question goes to Ms. Britton first, and it is, why are you running? If elected, what are you planning to do, and how do you plan to do it?
Good evening, and I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all the sponsors for this evening, and I want to thank all of you fine folks for coming out this evening. If I was elected mayor, what do I plan to do and how do I plan to do it? Basically, I want to professionalize City Hall. I want to install transparent, accountable government to proactively manage Norwalk and do away with a lot of the political cronyism that has been prevalent in our system. And I want to move towards more outcome-based budgeting. I'd like to support real charter revision driven by the citizens of Norwalk. And one of those includes placing a city manager on the ballot and letting the voters decide. I want to move beyond business as usual. I also want to grow Norwalk's tax base because of the economic development I believe we're capable of. Despite being in a bankrupt state, our location between New York and Yale has us perfectly poised. I think we could do a better job of promoting businesses, new and existing. And I'd also like to review our zoning code for consistency with the master plan. And finally, I want to protect our neighborhoods. I want to reform planning and zoning and redevelopment and stop the poor land use decisions that result in taxpayer-funded lawsuits. And I want to enforce blight and other illegal apartment ordinances because it's taxing our schools, our fire,
Is that time?
and our police. And I want to protect us against Hartford. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to ask the timers when they hold up the timings, the stop sign, to make sure I can see it as well as the candidates.
Make a sound.
Okay. Mr. Conroy, same question.
First off, I want to say that Norwalk has, for me, been a terrific place to live. It's a great place to raise your family, and I think right now we're at a crossroad. We're transitioning to a center potentially for technology, innovation, and culture. Unfortunately, sometimes people get left behind in these changes, and we want to make sure that we have everybody involved and wrapped in, and we want to make sure, at least I do, that we go out and talk to the community and get their input. Residual projects today stall and then get stopped, and I think we have a lot of things to move forward and get completed and get the city moving in the right direction, and I have 12 seconds. I believe the right vision, the right leadership, and the proven ability will get the job done, and I think I have demonstrated that over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morris.
We're a city in transition which needs a proven proactive leader that will take the necessary initiative to create a sustaining, economically vibrant city where all stakeholders are heard, respected, and valued. Do I get to start over again?
Yeah, retime. Okay.
Okay. We're a city in transition which needs a proven proactive leader that will take the necessary initiative to create a self-sustaining, economically vibrant city where all stakeholders are heard, respected, and valued. In transition, we want to build not just brick and mortar as we've done in the past. We want to build Norwalk businesses, workforce development, and improve quality of life. Foundationally, this is my plan on Norwalk First, smart growth, economic development. Despite the current development projects, we're living in uncertain times. Our property taxpayers are overburdened, carrying our city and state budgets are no longer able to ease our city's burden. So what will I do? I'll create an environment that will foster entrepreneurial career opportunities for our communities. All the development we've got going on right now, it's built on cronyism. I would do what many other urban places do. Norwalk businesses are given first preference. Norwalk workers are giving first preference. The dollars that we spend, our taxpayer dollars, they stay within our city to help us boost our economy here.
Thank you. Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. Over the past 4 years, very short 4 years, we have Norwalk moving in the right direction. We're financially stable. We've got a lot of people investing in our community, bringing their businesses here. We've invested in our Board of Education, not only in the operating budget, but in the capital budget. Those are the things that I want to continue. Keep going the way we are and make sure that Norwalk continues and grows to the fullest potential. We also have our plan of conservation and development that we're going to be drafting this year. We have put together a coalition of 35 stakeholders that are working to help form Norwalk's vision for the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. It's bringing people together, helping them, or helping us to make sure that we understand what this community wants, being inclusive, being transparent, and making sure that we keep Norwalk moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. Next question goes to Mr. Conroy first. Renewables, like solar and wind, are linked to a better quality of life and jobs that are both environmentally sustainable and
I
good for
can
the
hear
economy.
about half of what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
All right, this is going to be a hand
And
mic.
the person to my left can't hear it all. So.
Okay, let me try this. All right, renewables like solar and wind are linked to better quality of life and jobs that are both environmentally sustainable and good for the economy. If you are elected mayor, will you commit to sign the Sierra Club's Mayors for 100% Clean Energy push? If not, why not?
So the question is about renewables?
It's specifically, if you are elected mayor, will you commit to sign the Mayors for 100% Clean Energy push, and if not, why not?
As a long time, thank you. I might need one more reminder, and then I'm sure I'll get it. As a lifetime believer in the application of technology to improve our lives, yeah, I do believe that we need to move toward clean energy. I also think that we need to keep moving toward projects in the city that reduce our consumptions of energy as best as we can. A lot of times, folks don't really know what the biggest consumers of energy in the city may be and where the real opportunities are to reduce the consumption. It was typically buildings. I'd have to have a few discussions and some research done, but I have a hunch probably still is buildings, because these buildings are pretty old, a lot of them are. So I think, yes, it's doable. It was something I would do as mayor, and I would support it. I don't think I would force other forms of energy out, though.
All right, Mr. Morris.
As a state legislator, I've already been awarded by Sierra Club for my record on environment, and I'm fully in support of whatever we can do for clean energy, and actually it's a way to create additional jobs as well. For a very simple answer, yes.
Need to come up close.
In my legislative record, I've already been given awards by Sierra Club for my record on the environment. I'm a full proponent of whatever we can do for clean energy. In addition to the savings that it does, it also creates many jobs, and it's the best thing we can do for our kids for the future. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. One of the first things I did when I was elected mayor was to form an energy and environmental conservation task force. We are now investing in solar panels not only for City Hall, but in some of our schools. We're also looking at the possibility of having Manresa Island as a solar field. We're not sure if that's something we can do right now, but we're looking at that possibility. We've already determined that wind power is not something that would probably be effective in the city of Norwalk because of our location. The other thing is that I have already signed on to the mayor's 100% sustainable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brinton.
Yes, I would obviously support any clean energy, renewable energy for this city. And I support the mayor in terms of one of the potential uses of Manresa Island is putting solar panels out there. However, in terms of other jobs, and this is in keeping with the state of Connecticut, they have a First Five program, which looks at solar, renewable energy, pharma, biotech, insurance and finance, digital media, and manufacturing. I would look to digital media because of our proximity to New York City, as well as pharma and biotech. We are a regional hub for medical services, and so I think we need to be looking beyond that. So yes, certainly with solar and renewable energy, but I would look for other opportunities for employment as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Is there any rebuttal on this, by the way? Or anything further? All right.
Is there none?
Thank you.
This is my question.
Your question.
All right, next question goes to Mr. Morris first. How would you address the continued library parking problem?
Okay, what was the question? I didn't hear.
Was the question, how will you address?
What was the question?
How will you address the continued library problem?
Parking problem.
Parking problem. Well, I haven't fully reviewed the recommendations that I think we recently just had a parking study, but I think the parking problem goes beyond just the library. We have a problem with parking throughout the entire city of Norwalk. Specifically, I know we can't continue to do deals with developers that get a chance to come in and buy property or sell property to us for a larger amount of money after the fact. And we need to do more, really, to provide free parking. So this really goes into my larger view, which goes back to my economic development plan. I'm talking about doing private-public partnerships that alleviate us from using so many state and local dollars. In so doing, and there's private investors that are really glad to invest here in the city of Norwalk, we get to continue to keep our goals and our objectives in the forefront. Developers still get to make their 6%, or whatever their percentage is that they would have been looking to make, but we get to reduce the dollars that we have for us as taxpayers. This really gets into a larger scheme of what is our total plan of development throughout the city. And the diversification of our tax base, the fact that we don't have additional industrial complexes, and therefore we're limited in our ability for what we're able to tax and get revenue.
That's time, I'm afraid. Next, Mr. Rilling, same question.
Thank you. You know, the Norwalk Library should be an anchor for the Wall Street area. It's a gem of the city, and people use it for a variety of reasons. We have seniors that go there all the time. We have children that go there all the time to do their homework. The parking problem isn't something that just happened overnight. It's been decades that the parking has not been adequate at the library. We are working on it now with the owner of the property, trying to acquire property so that we can make sure that we have adequate parking. This problem did not occur under the Rilling administration, but I can guarantee you that it will be solved under the Rilling administration.
All right, Ms. Brinton.
The parking problem stems from a professionalism in government problem, which is the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. We have a planning and zoning, we have redevelopment, we have a parking authority, all of whom have master plans. One end of Wall Street, we want to give away a parking lot in exchange for mayor rights. And another way, we double the price of a parking lot because we didn't know that the property was going on the market. We zoned it for additional apartments and then doubled the value. This is what happens when you don't have professional management and our cronyism way of doing things. The Wall Street area is shocking for me. In the 20 years I've lived here, has continued to look the way it does. And it's pretty much looked like that since the flood of ¡55. Professional management would start addressing the core of our city first. Was that my tongue? Sorry. We'd start addressing the core of our city. We can't be taken seriously as a city unless we have the center of it sorted out. And that includes the library, the parking, and everything. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Conroy.
The library is a resource that folks in the city where I live, and everywhere else I think, except for East Norwalk and maybe South Norwalk, use the library at some time during their school careers. It's a heck of a resource for learning and information, and it's gotten better and better over the years. It's unfortunate that we don't have the ability to park here. I remember fighting over parking a long time ago and discussions on the council a long time ago. And we are really in a position now where we need to force the issue and come to a conclusion. There is an opportunity with the current owner. We should see if we can develop that opportunity into a solution. Absent that, we need to find another solution and keep looking. There's other properties nearby that are about to change hands in the relatively near future, I think. And we need to be ahead of the curve rather than responding afterwards. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody wish to reply or extend their remarks on this one?
I'd like to extend. Thank you. We'll be looking at our plan of conservation development, and our master plans have been dictating all this anyway. So when we take a look at parking, as I earlier said, we need to take a look at the larger issue. And the larger issue for me ends up being, as Lisa said, it's the entire Wall Street district, When you go down to South Norwalk, you begin to talk about Webster Street development. We need to take a look at this in a holistic manner throughout the entire city. And that's why it is incumbent that the POCD process that we have right now is inclusive, that it makes sure that they have a real vision. That's 30 seconds?
I'm afraid that's 30 seconds. Anything else? Yes.
The mayor said that we would fix the parking on his watch, but quite frankly, one of the reasons why I'm running is 4 years ago, the mayor said he would sort out a lot of our planning and zoning issues, of which parking is one, and it has not been dealt with. He talked about the master plan, the POCD. The POCD has things like parking in it. The problem is that a lot of our code does not match up with our aspirational plans in the master plan. And the other thing about the master plan is it's driven by the state. It was usually driven to give us grant money. The state is broke. We should be doing this on our own proactively.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Rowan?
Yes, under my administration, every capital project goes before the Planning Commission for its connection to the POCD. We now have a form that we use to make sure that unless that capital project is something that is consistent with our plan of conservation and development, it does not get approved. So we're making sure that we do things the right way, and all that information is or will be available on the website so people can follow it closely.
All right. Does anybody else wish to rebut? All right. The next question goes to Mr. Grilling first. With all the new residential, condo, and apartment buildings and a new mall, what, if any, are your plans to control increased traffic?
Every project that comes before planning, comes before zoning, or whether it goes before redevelopment, has a requirement to have a traffic study. And when we find that traffic would either be too heavy and it would draw too much traffic, we require infrastructure improvements at the expense of the developer, making sure that if we need wider roads, if we need crosswalks, if we need sidewalks, if we need other kinds of things. I think I get a minute and a half on this, right?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay. Making sure that we control the traffic to the greatest degree possible, and making sure, again, that it all fits in with the master traffic plan. We just don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that our roads are navigable. We want to make sure that we have people able to navigate around the city. So those are the things that we do to make sure that our plans are consistent, and making sure that they do have a traffic study, and whatever we can do to minimize the impact of that traffic goes at the expense of the investor or the person who's developing the project.
Okay. Ms. Brinton?
It seems every time we create a new development, they always say it's going to be minimal impact on traffic. And I don't know about you, but I think the traffic's getting worse. We just put in a couple of fast food restaurants on Connecticut Avenue, and as soon as they go through the Chick-fil-A or the Popeyes, the traffic is backing up onto Connecticut Avenue if there's more than 7 cars. I am concerned, and one of the reasons why I'm running is that our mayor, who I voted for, a considerable amount of his campaign donations have come from the developers who are putting in a lot of these apartments.
Hold it, audience.
And I'm afraid that we're being cherry-picked as a city. And I'd like to put a moratorium on some of these things. I am pro-development, but I would rather have the developers come and sit down with me and talk about what we can do for Norwalk and for the city. They don't need to make campaign contributions to me. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Conroy.
We have processes in the city. The question that has always been in my mind, how well we convey the information from one board to another board to another board, and make sure the public knows what we're doing. We've improved. We have the Common Council on TV. We have the Board of Ed on TV, but a lot of the other various commissions are not broadcast, and you don't know what's going on. ZBA is an important group in town, and it would be great to have the ZBA hearings broadcast. With respect to planning and zoning, I think we got to make sure that we meet the objectives of our strategic plan. Now, I guess we could call that plan the Plan of Conservation and Development, because the state law requires it, and they call it that. But I want to think more in terms of strategic plans. Thank you.
Mr. Morris.
If I understand the question correctly, we're focusing primarily on the mall, which those traffic studies have already been done, so if it doesn't work out well for us, you get to blame the current administration, if that was the question as I understood it. My vision going forward, again, I talked earlier about smart growth economic development, which encompasses three things. All development is based upon business development, workforce development, quality of life. Quality of life, which deals with your traffic, is not an ancillary or something that happens after the fact. So your traffic studies would have been really important to make certain that they met our desired needs.
Okay.
Rebuttal?
Does anybody, yes, rebuttal. Yes, sir. Mr. Rilling.
You know, I wish on a federal level, like they have on a federal level, that we had fact check here in the city of Norwalk for some of the misinformation that's being passed around. Under the purpose of true transparency, I have for anybody's inspection a list of my donors and where they came from. More than 80% of my donations came from the Fairfield County area, and most of the donations came from individuals. You know, investors donate to campaigns. They donate to campaigns that they feel are going to keep Norwalk moving in the right direction, or the city moving in the right direction. Norwalk's not the only place where investors donate to campaigns.
That is time. Anybody else wish to rebut? All right. I'm going to ask the next one as a follow-up question, and it goes to Ms. Britton first. What portion of contributions from individuals to your campaigns were individual contributions of $1,000, the maximum allowed, and what proportion of these contributions came from outside Norwalk? Can you tell what portion of your total contributions from individuals came from outside Norwalk?
Thank you. As I was a petition candidate, my mother gave $1,000. She's in Arizona. I have 2 or 3 other $1,000 donations from local Norwalk residents. I think it's pretty safe to say, and tomorrow, my treasurer is out in the audience there, I think there were about 3 people that didn't live in Norwalk. All of my contributions have come from residents, from regular people. My candidacy is unusual perhaps as it is, but we're living in unusual political times, has come from regular people who are frustrated with the political system. And I've brought in a lot of new people who have perhaps been put off by the party system, whether it be Republican or Democrat. So most of my contributions were small. They came from Norwalk residents, and I would say with the exception of 2 or 3 people, one of which was my mother. I think the other one was from my former boss at AT&T. So local people supporting local politicians. Thank you.
The same question, Mr. Conroy?
We're answering the question of where did our contributions come from?
Yes, sir.
I'm about 2/3 Norwalk, 1/3 Darien, and the larger ones, which my largest are 500, came from Norwalk, and the next group down, the 250, 100 group is primarily Norwalk. I have smaller donations spread out in other areas, but either our community or the neighboring community.
All right, Mr. Morris.
I haven't assessed the actual percentages, but I can say that I have neither solicited nor accepted contributions from developers or unions. In fact, I've only got one from a contractor who is not even from Norwalk. My $1,000 contributions are from business owners, and I've got multiple contributions from business owners. Other than that, I've got a lot of small contributions from people in the city of Norwalk. Thank you.
Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I have a total of 289 donations from individuals. More than half of those came from Norwalk, 81% from Fairfield County, 30% from Fairfield County outside of Norwalk, 11% from Connecticut outside of Fairfield County, 7% New York donors, and 1% outside of Connecticut, not New York.
Okay, any rebuttal or extension on this one?
I would like to just, I think, follow up a little bit because it's kind of, I've got 30 seconds. Part of the reason why I decided to run, I'd had many conversations with the mayor on a variety of issues on planning and zoning as well as charter revision, was when I saw his donations this spring coming from outside of Norwalk, from Staten Island, from the Bronx, from Greenwich, from places that have nothing to do with Norwalk and tied to various controversial developments, and that upset me. And that's part of the reason why I'm running. Thank you.
Okay, anything further?
I had a addition for 30 seconds. The contributions that were $1,000 or over, we ended up, I think, in the Mayor Rilling campaign with $51,000. We also had another 10,000, that was 51,000 of folks outside of Norwalk, and 10,350 below 1,000 from non-Norwalkers. So I think 61,350 was the total for non-Norwalkers. There are a lot of $1,000 folks.
All right, any other rebuttal or extension? All right, next question goes to Mr. Conroy first. Should Norwalk have a city manager? Why or why not?
I'm just going to explain this. No, wait a minute. Let her do it. I can't hear you 50% of the time. What you got to do is hold the mic up and speak right into it.
I will try again. To Mr. Conroy first. Should Norwalk have a city manager? Why or why not?
Should Norwalk have a
City manager.
city manager? I'm not sure that Norwalk needs a city manager. I don't dismiss the possibility that could help. But there are alternatives. One is a chief of staff. The way the city manager has been described in some instances is that a city manager is like a dictator. The dictator is going to run the city, maybe be somewhat accountable to the mayor, somewhat accountable to the common council. It's kind of questionable to me why you would need a mayor and a city manager. On the other hand, if you had a chief of staff, which we don't have right now, despite somebody calling at one of the people in the office, chief of staff, if you had a chief of staff, I think we go back to the times when we actually made a lot of progress in the city when we had chiefs of staff, and I think that would help move the concepts from department to department to department and help us stay on top of the issues. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Morris?
To some extent, a city manager may amount to a redundancy of city issues, city services. I don't discount the idea, but I would not want to misuse taxpayer resources when they're needed in other places. Very frankly, I think we've already done charter revision. We've already heard where people are with that. If you got failed administration, you just need to get rid of the administration. I mean, there's another way. You can do a strong mayor system where, guess what? If the mayor and the Board of Ed aren't doing it, you get to vote them all out at the same time. So I believe in inclusive processes again, and of charter revision, and that's something that people wanted to do. As a mayor, I would make certain we had an open process. We would follow that again, but we're doing more information. I would make certain that everyone is aware of all the different forms of government. Quite frankly, as a mayor, I would want to be held accountable. I would, quite frankly, I'd be glad if we had a strong mayor system. So guess what? I'm able to appoint the larger portion of that Board of Ed, and if it's not working and the policies and the goals that we have collectively come together with for the good of this city aren't working, I need to go and that board needs to go.
Okay, Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. You know, a mayor is elected by the people and is accountable to the people. A city manager would be accountable to the common council, not to the people. You know, we don't need somebody coming in here, a professional resume builder, looking to build his or her resume on our dollar and then moving on to something else. As Mr. Morris said, if you don't like an elected official, you can vote that person out of office. I'm very proud of the professional team that we have put together over the past 4 years. People that are getting things done, working together, making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, accountable to the people, listening to the people, and making sure that the people get what they want through our professional team of leaders and professional department heads, whether it be the Corporation Council, my mayor's assistant, and other people who are working hard on behalf of the city.
Ms. Brenton.
In February, I spoke with the mayor and talked about the different roles of the mayor of Norwalk, partly as advocate for the city, custodian of the common council, a figurehead for ribbon cutting, the manager of the different department heads here at City Hall, a partisan head of a party, whether it be Republican or Democrat, or a visionary for the city. When we have DPW, Parks and Rec, and the Norwalk Public Schools clearing the area around the schools for the snow plowing and it's still not done efficiently, that's a city manager job. When we have to go to 17 different departments to pull a permit for business or to have a special event, that's where a city manager would come in. I see 56% of cities in America are moving to a city manager format. It's the most popular form of charter revision as cities become more and more complex. It's a professional. I see Norwalk needing an advocate and a visionary as we go through these trying times in the state of Connecticut. And I see a city manager running the day-to-day operations of the city and separating those two roles. Yes, you could have a chief of staff, but that person's not accountable to the Common Council either, and they're not in the charter. And I think that we need to move towards the direction that most well-run states and cities have. Most of the Southwest, a lot of cities out west, have city managers. They're thriving with businesses. They're easy to do business with. I think we could get rid of a lot of the cronyism and some of our dogmatic culture with the city manager. It's not up to me. It's not up to Harry. It's up to the people. It'd be put on the ballot. Thank you.
Any rebuttal or extension on this one?
You got it first? You got it first.
I was
Just give me an idea what that
Whose phone is that? Timer?
Yeah,
we did that.
city manager.
Yes.
You were rebutting the city manager?
Yes, Mr. Conroy, you're
No,
going to rebut.
I'm not rebutting on city
Oh, okay,
manager. I'm
then-
rebutting, period.
Harry wants,
Okay, go ahead.
Harry wants to rebut.
The other night during the Common Council debate, there was virtually no support for a city manager in the city of Norwalk. So at the very least, it's going to be virtually impossible to get it done. So I think we should continue to work towards professionalizing our current leadership, professionalizing the department heads that we have, doing nationwide searches, reaching out to find the best possible department heads that we can find. That is what we've done under this administration. And again, if you have no support from the Common Council, you're going to have a very, very difficult time in getting something accomplished.
Can I rebut?
Anything else on this?
Yes, I'd like to rebut that. Well, actually, there is another way forward on this. If I were to win, one of my big pushes is for professional management of this city. I don't see the Common Council ignoring the will of the people, but if the Common Council wanted to go that direction, we can do a petition, a citizen's petition, and it would be put on the ballot that way. So I seem to have caused World War III by suggesting some alternative form of management, but I think that we can see from a variety of our planning and zoning issues and some of our operational issues between the department heads, we could do with some professional management. Thank you.
Anything further? Yes, sir.
I think this question is being asked goes to the core of this election and why there is a sense, I believe, for change. Because we're talking about professional teams, we're talking about budget. Right now, the budget director, most people respond to him. But code enforcement is a problem in this city. Having a deputy director to try to answer some of those things on behalf of a mayor, that's really not the mayor. Transparency has failed. We have board members, we have Common Council members who are voting on issues without even having full information. Me, as mayor, I would be a responsible administrator, making certain that Common Council members are voting on things that they have full information for, that my department heads make certain that they have that information. I'm the mayor, and I'm responsible to you.
Okay, anything further on this question? All right, next question goes to Mr. Morris first. Should Norwalk be a sanctuary city? Why or why not?
Under the state of Connecticut statute, actually every city right now is a sanctuary city. Very frankly, it was, other than actually putting a label on it specifically as a city, the statute already covers it, that no police department can hold anyone or detain them for ICE. So I think the question is actually moot in determination for all cities.
Okay. Mr. Rilling.
However, I am full support, I still got a little bit of my time, I'm in full support of the fact that we have people who are living within our community who need to be properly serviced as anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rilling.
This question has come up before, and yes, Connecticut has what they call the Trust Act.
Yeah.
And it's a guideline as to how the police departments can interact or should not with the immigration and customs enforcement.
Right.
Now, I believe in human rights. And when we had two Norwalk residents, Nuri Chavarria, who was going to be deported, and she had to take refuge in a New Haven church, I was there standing next to her, making sure that I heard her and that we were standing up and fighting for her. When Sarah Corville was also going to be deported, I was there standing up for her and making sure that we did everything we could to keep her here. Both of those people are still here. They have cooperated with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They were mistreated, and it was inappropriate for what happened to them. And out of the 4 people up here, I was the only one that went and fought for them and made sure that we would do everything we can to keep them here.
Okay, Ms. Brinton.
Yes, the state has already passed a law, so there would not be enforcement on this issue in terms of turning people over to ICE. But sanctuary city means different things to different people, and I'd prefer to stay focused on the underlying policies. Obviously, aggressive enforcement means against humanitarian issues. You're going to be breaking up families, and you're going to start increasing your costs of social services. So I don't believe in that. But no enforcement means we have housing and safety issues, perhaps overcrowding in our educational system. So we need to strike a balance and focus on outcomes. For example, I don't believe we should be cooking out mothers, and our mayor was advantageous in promoting that, but I do think we need to be kicking out criminals. But like I said, this is a moot point because we have a state law on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Conroy.
With regard to sanctuary city, I think that the term is vague. It doesn't mean anything specific. And it ranges all the way from in-your-face federal government, we're not going to do a damn thing you tell us to do, to it's a very limited thing and it only applies to ICE when it overreaches. And I think that it started in California quite a while ago when ICE went out to a lot of factories and went to a factory 1 week and went back to that factory the second week, went back to that factory the third week, and they ended up rounding up hundreds of workers from the factory. It is an inefficient, ineffective way of handling immigration. But when we have somebody who has had a warrant issued for them, we would be insane not to honor the warrant.
Excuse me, if the audience makes outbursts again, I will ask the member of the audience to remove him or herself. I would also remind you that if you talk while a candidate is answering a question, you're using up his or her time. The clock is still running. Please do not do this. Is there going to be any rebuttal on this question? All right, next question goes to Mr. Rilling first. Currently, Norwalk has several important vacant senior staff positions: Health Director, Recreation and Parks Director, and Grant Coordinator that remain open. What process do you propose to fill these and future senior staff positions? And will you allow citizens to be part of the selection process?
Could you repeat the last part of that?
Yes, starting at what process do you propose to fill these positions? And will you allow citizens to be part of the selection process?
We have several openings right now, and because of the budget crisis that was in the state of Connecticut, I took the position that we needed to have a hiring freeze and a spending freeze. I can't even get a cup of coffee in my own office now. But we have a process that we go through. Each department head's position has a job description that goes with it, with certain criterion that you need to meet in order to be considered for that. Generally, what we do is we go on a nationwide search to look for the best qualified candidate while still allowing people within who are interested.
That's my first question.
Fast. This is his first question. Keep going.
The people that are already working and may be in line for consideration would also have an opportunity to apply. Once we put together then what we do is we bring in experts in that area. For instance, we did have a process where we were looking for a health director. We brought in experts from health departments from around the state of Connecticut to be part of the interview process. To have citizens involved, it's always a good idea. When I have police officer hirings and interviews and firefighters, I bring in citizens to interview them because of the importance of the position. It can be very challenging to have too many citizens involved in the process because it would be very difficult to come to an agreement. But we also consider having 1 or 2 local people that might help us to look at the resumes of the people that are being considered, to help weed out those that are qualified, and to continue on with those that don't, or not to continue on with those that aren't qualified.
Okay, Ms. Brinton.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can repeat.
Yes, I think we do need to do national searches. We're a city of 88,000, and some say probably more like 100,000, and during the course of the day with commuters, we're probably 105, 110,000. So I do think we need to go further afield than Norwalk and look outside the state. However, given that we do have a hiring freeze on and we're in some crunch times, there are a couple positions that I think I would staff irrespective. And one of those is building inspectors. They pay for themselves. We have a tremendous number of illegal apartments with landlords who are not paying their fair share of tax-paying dollars. If we don't pay our taxes if we're homeowners, they'll take away our house. So quite frankly, I think we could be doing a better job of taking care of the building inspectors, and I also think we need to do more grant writing. There is money out there that we could be getting, and I don't think we're doing enough of it. So obviously we need to staff the various department head positions, but there are some revenue producing positions that I think we should continue to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conroy.
Well, the department heads are the professionals that run the city. The mayor is elected. The mayor may have a skill set, like the current mayor, where he could address one department in the city particularly well, or not. And we've had luck with our mayors. We've had great success with our mayors, and I think one of the reasons we have is because beyond the mayor is a system of selecting and putting in place department heads. And when department heads don't make a good fit and don't perform well, I've noticed that they don't last long. I haven't seen a bad department head around for months and months and months. Usually they're pushed out, sometimes by the other department heads.
Okay, Mr. Morris?
Please repeat the question. Please repeat the question.
Yes. Currently, Norwalk has several important senior staff.
I can't hear you.
Currently, Norwalk has several important vacant senior staff positions, health director, recreation and parks director, and grant coordinator that remain open. What process do you propose to fill those and future senior staff positions, and how you will allow citizens to be part of the selection process?
Thank you. I love the idea of citizens being part of the selection process. Quite frankly, when I worked for the Norwalk Public Schools, we made certain that we had a process where teachers, parents, as well as administration was involved. So I believe in that as part of empowering. In terms of whether it needs to be a nationwide search, if you could do that inexpensively, yes. I'd like to get as many people who want to look at the job as possible. I agree with earlier comments that if people don't work out, you're able to move them on. However, that didn't work out so well for us with planning and zoning not too long ago. Some people were very unhappy with a position, and it took a while for things to change. It was critical. So, I believe that certainly the stakeholders who have a role and will be interacting with those department heads should be involved. Thank you.
All right. Is there any rebuttal or extension on this question? All right. The next question starts with Ms. Brinton. Excuse me. And it's a follow-up question. Would you support residency requirement clauses for key department directors? Why or why not?
Residency requirement for what?
Residency requirement clauses for key department directors. Why or why not?
I think it was mine.
And that's Ms. Brinton.
It was mine. Was it? Yes.
Yeah, minute and a half for Ms. Brinton, a minute for everyone else.
Thank you. Yes, I would. But I'm going to go back to the city manager. We talked about the different department heads. A lot of our planning and zoning issues stem from a redevelopment agency, a parking authority, and planning and zoning not being coordinated. So we can have great department heads, but if we don't have centralized management of that, residents feel it. As I pointed out before, in terms of something as simple as snow plowing, where we have different parts of the city, whether it be Parks and Rec, or DPW, or the Norwalk Public Schools, plowing the area for our children. we don't seem to be able to get it right. So one of the things when I talked about a city manager potentially, I believe they need to live in the city. I think they need to own the issues that we all have to live with. And so yes, I think they need to live here in the city, and there's my 30 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Conroy.
I would encourage it, and I would offer a bonus amount that isn't huge to move into the city if they weren't here already. But I don't want to get into the contract requirements that I've seen us get into with superintendents of schools, where in order to bring them into the city, we negotiate extremely large amounts of money to get them to move here, and then find that it doesn't work out anyway. So I think we have to be extremely careful and make sure that we encourage people to be here, provide some assistance to get them here, and call it a day at that if they can't make it.
Okay, Mr. Morris.
Yes, I believe there should be such a requirement that individuals need to be vested in this community. However, I believe that the hiring process that we use will help give us a wise choice. If we're making a wise choice, I don't have a problem at all paying for that person their transportation for them to come to move here, because we're not expecting them to be here for 1 year or 2 years. We're expecting them to be here for the long term. When you think about sometimes the catastrophes that have happened in other cities and other states, they wish that they had their department heads and sometimes even their police and law enforcement and other people living right there in that community. It is important.
Okay, Mr. Rilling.
I also would encourage it, especially for the police and fire departments. However, some department heads belong to bargaining units, and they have a bargaining agreement that we cannot override. Now, we talked about coordination among planning and zoning and redevelopment. Every Thursday since I've taken office, we have a meeting at 3 o'clock called our economic development meeting. Redevelopment is there, planning is there, DPW is there, my law department, my mayor's assistant. So we're not operating in a vacuum, we're not operating in a silo, we're coordinating our efforts, we're talking about a lot of different things that need to be done. We've also just completed a complete new process for snow removal for our schools, and that was done by the mayor's assistant, a person who might look like a city manager, if you will, because when I need something done, I can rely on her to get it done, and she's very professional at what she does. So we're doing all the things we have to do, we're doing it right, and we're making the city of Norwalk move forward in the right direction.
Is there any rebuttal or extension on this one? All right, the next question goes to Mr. Conroy first. What specific steps would you take during the next 2 years to reduce the cost of city government? How else could you help property taxes be lowered?
I was lucky to have been on the council during periods of time when we actually did strain costs down to 1% or less in terms of the percent tax increases for quite a period of time. That's not easy to do. It means that you've got to reduce government size, and that was done over a long period of time until we got down to the point where we weren't real sure where we could turn next to reduce it. Doesn't mean that you can't continue to do that. You can't continue to look for efficiencies. For instance, I know that if we go to one department in the city, we will find that if we can reduce the inefficiency of the way they operate, we can probably save ourselves at least $200,000 in storage costs and improve their cycle time dealing with a customer from 5 days down to same day.
Okay, Mr. Morris?
Please repeat the question.
Yes, sir. What specific steps would you take during the next 2 years to reduce the cost of city government? How else will you help lower property taxes?
Okay, so you heard me talk earlier about public-private partnerships, so I'm going to assume right now that you've got it and how that's going to make a difference. Nothing's our budgeting. We go to zero-based budgeting. The state level, we actually call it RBA, results-based accountability. You just don't get the dollars because those are the same dollars you got last year. You need to prove that you got some efficiencies. What have you done with those dollars? What were the goal of those dollars? What was the objectives? You need to show that to us. If not, we cut those dollars. We need to go to regionalized efficiencies. Unfortunately, I think we have an administration that hasn't been as present at the COGS as we need to be. Does that mean 30 seconds I'm done, or I have 30 seconds to go?
Either way.
Okay. In fact, just recently heard one of the people who's running for position in New Canaan said, listen, it'd be great to be able to share their water pollution control with ours. There are many efficiencies, and the state has actually put together laws and an ability for us to be able to regionalize many of the services that we currently provide. That would save us dollars.
Okay, Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. The city of Norwalk is in a great financial state. We have kept taxes, the bill rate increase low for the past 4 years, in fact, historically low. We are also, when I first took office, we had just lost $1 billion on our grant list. We have already recovered in 4 short years 40% of that money back. You have to encourage development. You have to encourage people to come into our city to invest their money and to help build our grant list. In that way, we can keep our taxes low for the homeowners. And during the first 4 years of my tenure, we've also instituted and implemented senior tax relief. So we're hopefully keeping our seniors in the city of Norwalk so they don't have to make a decision about paying their taxes or paying their electric bill. We want to keep them here. They've paid their dues. They've sent their children to our schools. They've paid their taxes all these years. So we want to do everything we can to keep our taxes low. We are also looking for efficiencies at every opportunity to see if we can do job consolidation where we don't need 2 people doing 1 job, so we're working on that as well.
Okay, Ms. Brinton.
The way to reduce our property taxes is to do smart planning and zoning. Bricks and mortar fund our town. I've looked at the budget. We're pretty efficient on the city side. The problem is, or not the problem is, but our challenge is in our educational budget, which right now is about 52% of our operating budget. And if you look at our new school construction, we're taking it up to 60%. We've got to have smart planning and zoning, and we have to enforce our ordinances because that puts strains on our resources and that ends up resulting in higher property taxes around the city. One of the things that I would do, having been very involved in our educational system, we have a very good educational system for a mid-sized city. We have to quit comparing ourselves to our leafy suburbs that don't have the same issues we have. I would be out with our superintendent, having been a perpetual fundraiser as a parent, I'd be out there touting our successes as a mid-sized city and promoting Norwalk and bringing in grant money that way. That is one of the other reasons I would also go after the state in terms of ECS funding. Our mayor promised he would do that, and he has been fairly silent over the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal or extension on that? Yes, sir.
We hear that our city is in great financial shape, and it may be in great financial shape right now. However, we all know very well that the state is in transition in addition to our city. State funding, of which we do not get our fair share, is not reliable for the future. That's one of the reasons I'm running. All right, we cannot be reactive but proactive. We turned around and we gave this health plan to the unions this year. That state health plan had been around for a couple of years. We wait until we have a crisis. I am a proactive leader, and I would look for all these other efficient.
Okay, I'm afraid that's time. Anything further? All right, Mr. Rilling, this will be your last rebuttal.
Okay. Well, it's important to look at the state funding that we receive, and Mr. Morris is right. We do not receive the money we should from the state of Connecticut. In fact, we've been flat funded on our ECS for many, many years. We get so few dollars per student that the rest of it has to be made up on the back of the taxpayers. I look at our state legislature and say, why is that? Why is that happening? If you've been up there 6 years or 6 terms, you should have done something about it. Secondly, Norwalk is in good financial shape, and we are going to continue moving forward, and we're not going to have to send out supplemental tax bills like most of the other cities based on the budget crisis.
I'm afraid that's time. Anything further?
Can you use one of your other rebuttals on the same question?
No, it's one rebuttal per question, I'm afraid. However, there is a follow-up question that was asked by the audience, so I might as well ask it.
Okay.
And this goes to Mr. Morris first. How will you work with the state and the Board of Education to secure adequate funding for Norwalk's local schools?
Thank you. Number one, I'm glad that I've been there for 11 years, and if you take a look at the record, that was one of my promises I made the first time I ran, is that I would actually reform education and the education cost sharing formula. For the 11 years that I've been there, I think all but one, the city of Norwalk has received increases in its education sharing formula, either through that or party school districts. So I have done that. I don't have to send a deputy or someone else there. Very few of our mayors have ever gone there. I sat on the Finance and Revenue Bonding Committee intentionally this last year. I know the people there. I can go do it firsthand. In fact, you'll take a look at our videos. I work bipartisan. Myself and Fred Wilms put in a bill this last year that, quite frankly, everyone across the board took a look at, and had the state actually had more money, we would have been funded. If you take a look at the budget that we just now did, Norwalk's biggest issue is that our grand list was always held against us, but that part of the formula has already been changed. So movement has been happening over due to the efforts that I've given over the last 11 years. I do need to say this. The incumbent talks about, well, he's limiting it to just education and what funding happened there, and we talk about what might have been flat funded. Well, he forgets, well, we had other commissioners funding and other things that we did to fund education. But at the end of the day, it's the entire budget, it's all the grants that Norwalk gets. And I can say for the last 11 years, the city of Norwalk is, I think, except for maybe one, has always ended up on the positive side of that. So for anyone to say property tax owners, as mayor, we have done it, quite frankly, you need to give credit to your state legislators who've made certain that Norwalk was taken care of.
That is time. Mr. Rilling.
Yes, when I first took office, I was asked by the finance director if I supported the CJEF versus REL lawsuit. It appears that when my predecessor was in office and there was a Republican governor, he decided not to participate in that lawsuit. The minute that the Democratic governor got elected, then he decided now he wanted to participate in the lawsuit and pay the annual fee for it. When I got into office, my finance director said to me, "Do you want to support this? There's a Democratic governor in office." I said, "Of course I'm going to support it because it's the right thing to do." I stood up against the governor. I joined the lawsuit. I participated on the advisory committee of the CJEF versus REL lawsuit, which is right now about the only way we're going to see the ECS formula change to any great degree. The only way that Norwalk could possibly get the money that we're supposed to get, because the state constitution requires that each child in the state of Connecticut should have a fair and adequate education. And right now, Norwalk is not funded to the degree that we're able to give our children an adequate and fair education without putting it on the back of our taxpayers.
Sorry, Ms. Brinton.
The state looks at Norwalk as a cash cow, and they have as long as I've lived here, for the 20 years I've been here. They've never given us our fair share of ECS funding. One of the ideas I have, because I'm kind of the ideas gal here, the walk bridge, we haven't talked about that yet. Walk bridge is about to blow up our city for the next 5 to 7 years. It's going to be bigger than anything that was on Route 7 or even I-95. One of the things I think we should be getting in terms of compensation is, why doesn't the state build us a new school? It's an infrastructure project with the walk bridge. Schools are infrastructure. Yes, they're doing some things with the IMAX Theater and perhaps with Lockwood Matthews Mansion, and that's all great. But the state does things for us that'll help sales taxes, which all go up to Hartford and doesn't necessarily help Norwalk residents. I think the best way they could make good on some things and shortchanging us for ECS is to give us a school. If you're going to take the infrastructure of the railroad bridge, then that's something that we could really, really use. So that's one of my ideas. Thank you.
Mr. Conroy.
We've tried for years to improve the ECS funding, and we've battled with our state reps, and we now have state reps that are actually seeking to improve ECS, education cost sharing. With regard to the lawsuit, I think there's a sound foundation that the Constitution requires that the kids get equal funding for education, and I can't believe that we're going to continue with the current ECS system. I would think we're going to end up with something closer to California. Total funding for schools, I think, should be dealt with separately than funding for bridges and infrastructure, railroads and roads. I just don't want to mix the two. And I would like to see instead a Wall Street train station included in the mix.
All right, is there any rebuttal or extension on this one? All right, since the walk bridge has come up, Mr. Rilling, the question goes to you. Has Norwalk's government adequately protected the city's interests with respect to CONDOT's plans to replace the walk bridge? If not, what specific steps would you take as mayor regarding the walk bridge project?
Thank you. You know, the walk bridge is the most important part of the rail system on the Northeast Corridor. 197 trains a day go over that bridge. It is 125 years old. It needs to be replaced. Now, since I've been in office and since we've talked about this, I've met probably a dozen or so self-proclaimed engineers that figure out they know best and how to fix the walk bridge. You can't weld it shut. You have to replace the bridge because it's old, and it's going to take a bit of time. I have been meeting at least 50 or 60 times with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, with my staff, with other individuals to make sure that Norwalk's interests are going to be taken care of. We have worked through a lot of different issues. I have written the governor a letter saying that I am going to hold them accountable, the CONDOT and the governor, to make sure that the impact on the city of Norwalk is minimal. Making sure that they take care of our businesses, making sure that when they start the construction, that we're able to navigate and that businesses don't have to close down. And then I'm saying, how are you going to hold harmless our businesses that might lose revenue because of their customer base? So the meetings continue. We are doing everything we possibly can to make sure that the walk bridge is going to be done, and it's going to be done right, and making sure that the impact on the city of Norwalk is going to be minimal.
Ms. Brinton.
Does anybody here trust the state? If they won't look after our children with ECS, why in anyone's name would they look after small businesses? We signed away our rights, our common council, when we signed the master municipal agreement with the DOT. They're determining the engineering, they're determining the right-of-ways, and they're not discussing payment timeframes. In fact, about a month ago, I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting with the Connecticut Economic Commissioner, and the walk bridge came up. And I specifically asked, how are you going to take care of Norwalk? Don't worry, we got plenty of time, it's 2 years away. Lori Toronto from redevelopment asked the same question. Businesses concerned, don't worry, you'll be taken care of. I was very frustrated. Our mayor was in that room and never raised the issue, while two of his citizens were talking about it. I don't trust the state. If I was mayor, I would be making a lot more noise. Thank you.
Mr. Conroy?
For a few months now, I've been talking about the walk bridge, partly because I was contacted by some science engineering folks in the area who briefed me on what's going on in the river and what impact this could have, as well as the question of why a fixed bridge wouldn't be much more economical, quicker to install, maybe a 3-year project instead of a 7-year project. So if we're talking 300 million versus almost $1 billion, I can see with a broke state and a federal government that's out of money, a real advantage to that. Now the question is, how far upriver do you want to go to not have the ability to get under the bridge? Well, the bridge can be designed to allow it, and we can change the navigability rules going upstream and help those businesses economically. We got $700 million to play with if we do the $300 million job.
Mr. Morris.
Major key here is holding businesses harmless. And unfortunately, I think the horse is already out of the barn on this. As it was earlier said, we already signed a master municipal agreement, so whatever terms we wanted, we've already been negotiated away. Our leverage is gone. This was brought up earlier with Tim Sheehan. The first time I was given a presentation as something key for us to pay attention to. That's been lost. So going forward, I think the only thing that can be done, the incumbent has said that he's already sent letters to the mayor, to the governor. I think between whoever the mayor is going forward and legislators are going to have to stay vigilant, and they're going to be the ones holding CONDOT responsible, because barring the agreement, we've lost our leverage.
All right, anything further on the long bridge?
I wanted to add on for 30 seconds if I could.
Yes, sir.
The walk bridge should not be something we give into. What I thought would be smart is that we get an engineering firm whose expertise is building bridges like that, have them come in, do arm's length involvement in the study, turn the study results over to the city and to Connecticut Department of Transportation. It would behoove the Department of Transportation to have another set of eyes look at this. It would behoove the city to have another set of eyes look at it. Thank you.
Okay, anything further on this? All right, next question starts back with Ms. Britton. How will you address issues connected to the pension plan for current and retired custodians?
How would I deal with issues on the pension plan? Well, pensions are a touchy subject here in the state of Connecticut. Pensions are impacting what we can do with our operating budget and how we move forward with our city. We've got to fully fund it. The markets are improving, so basically pensions are doing better compared to the hit we took 10 years ago, 5-6 years ago, so we're recovering. But is the question what do I do going forward, or I think we need pension reform. I think basically going forward, and we've done this with a lot of the new renegotiating our contracts with our employees, moving towards a system that is more reflective of what the private sector has to deal with. So I am supportive of that. I'm probably more fiscally conservative, and I would be looking for tightening down. We've got to honor our commitments to employees that have their contracts, but going forward, I would be looking for something more similar to the 401ks and plans like that to fund our employees. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Conroy.
A lot of our pension plans in the Board of Ed, in the police department, I'm not sure in the fire department if it's true, but they're bifurcated. There is an older plan, an older group that is a lot richer, better off in the plan, and there's a newer hires group, particularly in the Board of Ed, that get less. And what I'm sure that's going to happen, the drama that's going to come, is the new guys in each of these areas is going to say, why can't I be moved into the same plan as the people who've been there? And so we're going to have a lot of push for more expensive pension plans. I think you have to look at the pension plan problem right in the eye and strongly negotiate new plans that treat new people fairly and don't allow the continued cost increases to the larger, older plans. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Morris?
We need to honor the contracts that exist. In terms of what we do with the newer contracts, we need to take a look at, and I don't know what the future sustainability, I know what it is for the state, but I don't know what it is for the city of Norwalk, but that's what I would want to know. Of your current pension funds with the contracts we have, are they sustainable? With newer contracts should reflect the current realities. No matter what, we should treat people fair. But the current realities and whatever currently is happening in the market needs to be considered, particularly in our negotiations with those unions, as part wage and as part benefits, health packages. What is fair and reasonable? You want to have quality public servants, and we're fortunate that we do, and we need to reward them as well. We just need to make certain that we don't have wages that are out of balance with the benefit packages that we provide.
Okay, Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. Currently, with the bargaining agreements in place, you can't negotiate for people that are already retired. So people who are retired already have their pension plans in place. We have been looking to go from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan for new employees, and that's going to be saving us lots of money in the future. We also, and one of the reasons we have a AAA bond rating is we have a process in place that the bond rating agencies felt was very, very effective to bring our, to fully fund our other post-employment benefits as we go forward. We add money each year to make sure that we're not going to find ourselves with other post-employment benefits that we can't afford or that are going to bankrupt the city. And we have done that consistently. I think we're one of the only cities that really have a plan in place to make sure that we're fully funded in our OPEB.
Okay, anything further on this one? All right, next question starts with Mr. Conroy. This will probably be the last question before the closings, and it's fairly simple. If elected, would you develop more walking paths and bike lanes in Norwalk?
I would if I knew where to put them. We have had an emphasis to add walking paths and bike lanes. I think everybody knows about the River Project and the effort to do Sharrows and quite a few other projects that we had in the city. Some have worked out well, some not so well. But I think we ought to keep trying, because having people out walking and biking safely is great for our health, and I think we ought to make sure that we don't become a couch potato community that's stuck with our devices at home. And so I really want to see everybody out and about, and so yes, that will help push forward continued development of these, just as I did in the past.
Thank you. Mr. Morris.
That is a decision that I think would be, I would take my guidance from the process we use at the Plan of Conservation and Development. Again, I'm about inclusive processes. We are the citizens. We should be determining what the future of Norwalk should be, what it should look like 10 years from now. Provided we do a conclusive process and we have really city planners involved, we can determine what is the best uses for the city of Norwalk. This gets us away from doing deals with just 3 common councilmen or small developers. I'm all for getting away from that. This is what will work best for the city of Norwalk going forward, and I agree. In terms of health and quality of life, those are good things to have, but it's process for me, and that is our product, and that I would push for more than anything else.
Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. Again, one of the first things I did upon taking office was to establish a bicycle and walking task force to make sure that Norwalk had adequate, safe bike lanes for our young people and for our senior citizens and others who wish to ride bikes. It's interesting because we have the bike lane task force, which has now been made a standing commission rather than just a task force. We support the Norwalk River Valley Trail, which is an important thing for walking and biking, and other cities have contacted Norwalk and asked us to help them develop their bike lane policies as well. We are looking to partner with Darien and Stamford so that young people coming from Darien or Stamford, if they choose to ride their bikes to Norwalk Community College or another area, will be able to do that. So we are ahead of the curve on this. We have taken the lead in Fairfield County on our bike lanes and our walking program. We want to make sure that our bike lanes are safe. We want to make sure that people can walk around our cities, around our sidewalks safely, and we want to make sure that everybody can do so, and that's great for exercise as well.
Okay, Ms. Brinton.
I'm all for bike lanes and walkability, but I don't think that's our most pressing issue here in Norwalk. I think we need to enforce our blight ordinances, and I think we need to enforce our illegal housing that devalues neighborhoods and strains our schools, our police, and our fire, and negatively affects the taxpayer. I think we need to deal with things like the BJ site, where we would have traffic jams. We need to deal with library parking. We need to deal with POCO on Wall Street. We need to deal with the Main Street parking lot. We need to deal with the train station. We need to deal with, we just paid out money for the lawsuit on eminent domain for the police station from 10 years ago. We need to deal with the Martin Luther King Boulevard and what we could do to increase revenues there. Oak Hills, aggressive parking tickets. Quintard, where we've got a lawsuit on that because we were going to put a halfway prison house. And finally, the ordinances and the problems that the South Norwalk people have to deal with Amic karting. These are the things we need to deal with first, and then we can put in bike lanes and walkability. Thank you.
Thank you all. Any rebuttal or extension on this one? Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow on.
Mr. Pomeroy, you certainly may. You have 30 seconds.
I didn't quite get what she said. She said yes?
Yes, that was a yes.
Yes is yes. I don't think it's either or. I mean, we're a big city, we're big boys and girls, we know how to do a lot of different things. We can walk and chew gum. I think we can do bike lanes, we can do walkability, we can do Tree City, we can do the public-private partnerships that we have all over the city with the little grass areas that help beautify the city. We don't have to wait to do something because we have something else we want to concentrate on for the moment. And I do think we have a lot of things that are very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on this question? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Since I get the key part out, I'll use my tentative release, my 30 seconds, to say the agreement. It's about prioritization. So number one, the POCD, that helps us to get there. But part of that process, it helps us to prioritize. And that's the whole thing. One thing we haven't said here tonight is about, okay, get the POCD, but the city having a strategic plan, one that we monitor, when do we actually implement? Because right now we have plans, we put them on shelves, we say that, different committees review them, but they're neither monitored or implemented. I'm all for an inclusive process of POCD, a strategic plan that the entire city buys into so we get these things actually done.
Sorry. All right. Anything further? Because at this point, we're going to go to closing statements. I want first to apologize to the audience for not getting to everything that you asked. I would also like to request that you hold off applause and comments until after all four of the panelists have completed their close. 2 minutes each, starting with Mr. Morris.
I thought it was the same order.
Mr. Morris?
I thought we started the same order that we had.
No, this is random luck of the draw, and this is where it rotated around.
Oh, Andy was the last one.
Well, forgive me if I get redundant from some of the things I said earlier, but to try to meet the time, I need to do it 2 minutes. I said, we're a city in transition which needs a proven, proactive leader that will take the necessary initiative to create a self-sustaining, economically vibrant city where all stakeholders are heard, respected, and valued. For nearly 3 decades, my only wife of 38 years and I have resided in the city of Norwalk, raising our 4 children who have all matriculated through the Norwalk Public Schools. I'm a homeowner and have served this city in various capacities during that time. I said this earlier, but transitionally, we want to build not just brick and mortar. We want to build Norwalk businesses, workforce development, and improve quality of life. Foundationally, this is my plan of Norwalk First, smart growth economic development. Despite the current development projects, we're living in uncertain times. Our property taxpayers are overburdened. Carrying our city and the state budgets are no longer to ease our city's burden. Creating public-private partnerships will ease that burden. We need to create an environment which will foster entrepreneurial career opportunities for our community. We need to have a stellar school system attractive to all people who want to live or have homes in a safe, vibrant, and diversified community with fair, transparent, and inclusive decision-making processes for this to become a reality. Given the status of my political, spiritual, academic, and entrepreneurial experience, past and present, I am the most suitable candidate to address the economic, cultural, administrative, and political needs that will ensure the success and future of the city of Norwalk. Just as I kept my commitment and promise to my wife of 38 years and to the 140th district whom I have faithfully represented and fulfilled the promises made, I'll be honored to do the same for all the city of Norwalk. I'm serving my 11th year in the state legislature and have the great honor of being selected as Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. I'm an Associate Minister of Macedonia Church. Formerly, I was the Director of Human Relations for Norwalk Public Schools for nearly 18 years, in addition to being the founder and president of several construction-related companies. With this experience, I am the most suitable candidate to address, as I said earlier. With that being done, I hope that I would have your vote on November 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Rilling.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the Norwalk NAACP, and others who sponsored this forum and gave us an opportunity to come before our constituency to tell why we should be elected on November 7th. You know, the people of Norwalk know me. I know the people of Norwalk. I've lived here my entire life. People know what we've done in 4 short years. We've taken our city of Norwalk and made us financially stable in spite of the Connecticut budget crisis. We are a AAA bond-rated agency, and Standard & Poor's have said that that City of Norwalk is the only city poised to make it through this budget crisis unscathed. We will not have to be sending out tax bills. That's because we made good decisions, tough decisions, decisions that maybe other people might not have made, but we made those decisions because we knew it was right for the City of Norwalk. We've invested $130 million in our school infrastructure. We've given them a $9 million increase in their operating budget, which allowed them to implement their strategic plan and contributed to not only a SPED program, but also to make sure that we can reduce the achievement gap that we've reduced by 30% in 1 year. We are in good shape in Norwalk. Now, there are others who say that there's nothing right in Norwalk and nothing is going right, but I'm out in the community every single day. I meet people all the time. I have an open door policy to people who come to my office and want to talk to me. I make sure that we listen to the public. We make sure that we get things done. We have assembled a very, very professional team of leaders, people who are working hard on behalf of the city. I know that you know what we've done. I know what we've done, and I know that Norwalk needs a strong mayor going forward into the next 2 years. I am that mayor, and I'm here to ask you tonight, not only that you've supported me for the past 4 years, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve this city. I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. Let's keep Norwalk moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Britton.
I want to thank the League and the co-sponsors for this debate tonight, and thank all of you. I've lived here for 20 years. I'm the mother of 2 sons who graduated from Brian McMahon. One's at George Washington University, the other one is down at Virginia Tech. You don't have to have lived here your whole life in order to see the potential that Norwalk has. We're living in some pretty uncertain and uneasy times in the state of Connecticut. I'm not a politician or a retired employee with 2 pensions. I'm a self-employed businesswoman who's been working in education for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I was a corporate executive with AT&T and Lucent Technologies. I spent 25 years working around the world with Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and governments in Europe, Asia, and throughout the US. Education is going to account for about 60% of our budget. When I retired from the corporate world after several bouts of cancer, I focused on all things Norwalk, and I went into education. I started out in the PTOs, fundraised, moved into education reform, did things at the state level, worked with the district on the district data management team. I understand the education component. To pay for our education, we're going to need visionary and reform-minded leadership to transform Norwalk into a professionally run city and to diversify our tax base. I have that experience because I helped transform a dysfunctional Board of Ed that was one that was focused on taxpayers and students instead of insider politicians. I'll do the same for City Hall. I was a prolific fundraiser, and as mayor, I'll do the same as I'll work hand in hand with Dr. Adamowski to promote the successes that have taken 10 years to do. They didn't just happen on our mayor's watch. We need to maintain and enhance our services, and we need to ensure a high quality of life for our residents, and not necessarily doing our development helter-skelter. That's why I'm asking for your vote on November 7th, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Conroy.
I think we have to step back and consider what kind of city we want to be. What are our goals for 5, 10, 20 years down the road? And what do we need to do to get there? I could talk about myself a little bit. I've served the city for just under 30 years. I've held positions on a variety of local boards. I was on the Common Council for 10 years. I was on the Zoning Commission, and I recently resigned as chairman of the Norwalk Zoning Board of Appeals after 6+ years to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest as running for mayor. Moving Norwalk towards a set of common goals required demonstrably competent and tested leadership, and I brought that to the city at each job that I've held. Decisions that we will have to make are too critical to leave either to someone without experience in government or to someone who insists that they're without error. What sets me apart from other candidates is I can point to several successful projects in Norwalk that I've had a hand in getting accomplished. Sometimes small contributions, and other times a very meaningful one. One in particular was, as council president, I led a charter change that achieved changing the manner in which we elect the Board of Education members so that they are truly elected rather than what was, at that time, essentially an appointment. One person out of the bunch got elected every cycle. I think we've got to take a moment and say what's really on the docket right now, and I think development is a biggie, and so I'm going to suggest the following. The temporary moratorium on development pending reviews of the impacts on public works infrastructure and need for expansion of education, police, fire, health, and emergency services. I want to see us include in our contracts going forward windfall development profit reform with added protection in the contracts to future land use disposition. And third and last of my points, zero tolerance for POCO-like failures. City and Norwalk agreements are not to be set aside because we feel sorry for a developer. This extends to rebuilding and repairs.
Thank you. On behalf of the League and all the sponsors, I want to thank all the candidates very much.
Thank you.